certainly very upset, very disappointed. I think you've seen the postings of the families and how disappointed they are. They had no preconceived notions. They knew the battle that they were up against. I constantly told them that that this bill was not going to get onto the floor in the House or the Senate. But nevertheless, they kept working and they kept trying. This bill got as far as it got because of their efforts. They all thanked me yesterday. But it was because of their efforts and their diligence and their hard work that it got where it got. I don't think everything is entirely lost. You're going to have House members put up amendments when they can. I have been putting up amendments in the Senate over the last several months, and I'll continue to do that. And we've got to get Republicans on record showing them to be not in favor of common sense gun solutions. And I think that we've already shown that. It's already very clear. My feelings are essentially that. I'm very disappointed. We've had about 2 to 3 different amendments that we would argue are germane, the parliamentarian is arguing are not germane in the Senate floor. You've seen House members try amendments on the House floor. We still have the amendment process. That's number one. 2 days ago, very quietly, I tried what's called a special order. I was called up to the front desk and they said, we're not going to recognize you for this. You can't do a special order. We argue we can. I'm going back and forth with the parliamentarian on that. She's giving me precedent why I can't. We're giving her precedent why we can. And so we'll keep up this fight. Probably not today, but in the coming days, we'll have a discussion on special orders. If the lieutenant governor wants to call on me, there's a rule for that too. He can't just not call on someone just because he feels like it. I think that every possible gun bill that we have filed and that others have filed that are common sense gun safety solutions have some real challenges from going forward. The best thing that we can see are amendment opportunities, like I said before. But here's the reality to folks at home. You saw what happened in your neighborhood, in your community in Allen. It's going to happen again. 10 days, 15 days, 20 days. That is the rapidity by which these events are happening in Texas. There'll be another mass shooting within the next 30 days. That's horrible to say, but that is the reality. And sometimes people don't see it as a mass shooting, but the definition is 4 people dead. And we've had an abundance of them this year alone. Only a couple that we've paid attention to, but it's happening, and it's happening in our communities every day. Listen, it's very clear where the Republicans are in their position on gun reform. They don't want any.
But why not have a debate?
Because they're afraid of the debate.
Why?
Because the vast majority of their constituents want gun reform, and every poll shows it, but they're afraid of their right-wing contingency. They're afraid of getting primaried, and that's the reality. They're so stuck on staying in office and staying in power that they don't want to do what's right for their constituents. First off, he obtained them through a private sale, some of those weapons, the shooter in Allen. Legal, for sure. Should we know about it? Should we have universal background checks to where at least there's some kind of registry that says, hey, Jack owns this gun. The DMV knows what kind of car you drive. Should we know that you own an AR-15? I think we should. Should we have regulations that say, we're not trying to take anybody's guns away, but should we have regulations that say an 18-year-old shouldn't buy an AR-15? Shouldn't buy hundreds of rounds of ammunition? Or if they do, maybe somebody in law enforcement should know about it? Should we not have a law that says, this kid just bought 2 AR-15s and 1,000 rounds of ammunition, something smells. That's a significant event. Let's call the sheriff so the sheriff can go do what's called an extreme risk protective order, where they take the guns for a little bit and they say, what's wrong, son? What's happening? Let's look at your social media. We've failed in regulating guns. We have failed our communities, and people and children are dying. I got elected to fix problems. I didn't get elected to sit here and posit my views on things. I got elected to fix problems. We have a problem that is staring us squarely in the face. And people are dying at the mall, and people are dying in schools, and people are dying in church. This notion, this some weird fealty to a AR-15 rifle is nonsense. Some weird fealty to some Second Amendment argument that simply isn't true. And most legal scholars will tell you that states, by the way, the Supreme Court will tell you that states can regulate certain aspects of guns. Not a problem. Sure, I mean, we'll support it if it's going to do something to curb what's happening. This young man in Uvalde tried 2 straw purchases before he was 18. The problem with that bill is that it doesn't do anything past that point. At the minute the kid turns 18, he can go to the gun store, just like this kid did, buy an AR-15, same gun store in the same small town, the next day buy hundreds of rounds of ammunition, same small town, buy another AR-15, pick up his internet-bought AR-15. So that bill really doesn't do a whole lot. It helps some.
But doesn't it prevent people from knowing that the person they're buying for is prohibited?
Sure.
And it keeps them from doing it, and they would face jail time.
Sure. The kid had tried 2 straw purchases and failed because the people he was asking said, no, I'm not going to do that. And so yes, in a straw purchase sale, it would have some protection. But come on, we need a whole lot more. And the whole lot more that I'm asking for isn't all that much. Raising an age limit to access an AR-15 to 21, extreme risk protective orders, and closing the gun show loophole, that is what 76% of Texans are saying they want, and 66% of Republicans. To your point, it's already federal law. It's already a federal law. It's basically a reporting of juvenile records and mental health records of juveniles so that as they go on and turn 18, because in Texas, you cannot buy a handgun, no matter what the governor tells you. They abandoned their case. The Attorney General abandoned his appeal on protecting us. But still, most police departments can still arrest people for having a gun, a handgun, if they're 18, 19, or 20. Unfortunately, DPS has issued a memo to not have that done. And so we're in a weird state of affairs because of what this governor and our Attorney General have caused. But we still have an age limit on handguns in Texas on the books.
But this was a federal judge that struck it down.
A federal judge enjoining only DPS and 2 sheriff's departments.
So It's not statewide in your opinion?
It's not statewide at all. He's enjoined DPS and 2 sheriff's offices. That's it. Yeah, no, I'm a gun owner. I own about 9 guns. I haven't renewed my CHL because I don't carry it with me anymore. There was a time when I was traveling a lot to the border. I had a law office down in McAllen. We had heard from DPS that there were some threats against state judges and people with state official plates. And so at the time I felt that I needed it, less so now. I still have my hunting rifle. I still have my shotgun. Still have the other guns safely stored away. I mean, I get it. I get what most of my constituents deal with in this space. I don't have an AR-15 and I don't need one. I just think that we need to have some common sense gun safety regulation. Most gun owners, like myself, that go out and go to the gun shop and buy them, they understand exactly what I'm talking about. They absolutely understand it. Farmers and ranchers, they don't want anybody and everybody carrying a gun. And we're really broken in this space and in this argument here. There's nothing wrong with regulating something that can kill you in a second. Not at all. Yeah, I filed a bill to have a DPS trooper in every school. My bill would have cost $2.1 billion. It's not the favored bill of the safe gun rights groups, but I'll do anything to keep our kids safe. We have to talk about the common denominator, which is access to guns in the hands of young people as well. But yeah, I would support the House bill over the Senate bill in a heartbeat because it's more money. What I don't like about it is there's also a volunteer cop component, kind of a retired police officer component, reducing liability and reducing transparency on them. And so those are some elements that I don't like about that. I'd rather put a DPS trooper in every school, and we have the money to do it.
How important are the accountability measures for school districts in these bills?
You know, the Senate bill has some accountability. There's an auditing, as you know, that's done every year. The fact is, the safety measures that we're doing and the money that we're putting into, while it's a tremendous amount of money, simply isn't enough. We have 8,300 campuses in Texas. That's a lot of schools to protect. A lot of windows to change out, a lot of doors to change out, systems in place that need to be changed. That is a tremendous amount of infrastructure change and not enough money to do it. And so if you're not going to do that, then you have to go to the core common denominator, and that's access of guns in the hands of people that shouldn't have them, mentally ill people like we saw in Allen. Well, listen, I'm not going to go down that road. You can be any color and be an extremist. Look at the Tarrio guy who was the head of the Proud Boys. He's Cuban American. He's still an extremist. This guy was an extremist in Allen. He's a white supremacist. We were told after El Paso that it was mental health and it was white supremacism, and they established a domestic terrorism task force. The governor, Lieutenant Governor Steve McCraw, and others were on that task force. They were to meet quarterly. I don't know if that's happened, and we're trying to find out. And they established a unit at DPS that was supposed to track white supremacism, ranting on the internet. They were supposed to find the next guy that did what the El Paso shooter did in 2019. So here yet again, we have another failure by the Department of Public Safety. It's a different kind of failure than Uvalde, but a failure nonetheless. We should have this discussion. Government tells you that we're here to protect you, And yet we still have a very thin layer of protection, and we see what happens when the inevitable happens. What can we do differently? Eliminate guns. 9,000 extreme risk protective orders executed in Florida. They've worked. Every sheriff in Florida approves of this process. We get guns out of people that are saying crazy stuff because the cops can't see everything, right? And so if someone sees something and says something, then we can go grab those guns for a little bit, go in front of a judge and say, hello, Mr. Tario or Mr. Sanchez or Mr. Johnson or Mr. Smith or Ms. Smith. What's going on here? Let's look at these threats. What's up with these threats here? That's common sense. Why do we want guns in the hands of mentally ill people? How is the NRA and this governor and other people like him, how are they okay with that? Are you okay with it? Having AR-15s in the hands of someone who's mentally ill? And can government go find that? And the answer is if you had extreme risk protective orders, you can. And Florida has done it with incredible success. Nobody's crying out and saying, oh, you know, they took my guns. Because the people that go into those hearings are usually people who have a problem. And we need to address it. So I'll tell you what I've told everybody that's asked me this question. I've got 2.5 weeks left to serve here and to try to do something for these families. And I'm going to take every minute of those 2.5 weeks that are left to try to effectuate something in this space. And if that means I'm just going to yell and scream about this issue, I'm going to yell and scream about this issue. But I'm going to try through the amendment process to create change. I'll make those decisions when I leave this building. Probably closer to July, I'll make those decisions. And so far as effectuating change, I think that we all have to be advocates for common sense solutions. Here, Washington, doesn't matter. We have to be advocates for common sense. We are broken as a nation. We are broken when it comes to guns because right-wing extremists have got us down this road of protecting a constitutional amendment, and they're giving us a failed argument that a lot of people are buying off on. The fact is, states can regulate access to guns. They can, and the Bruin decision says so. We need to be having these discussions in Texas and across this country. But decisions about my future are going to have to wait until I'm done here.
Democratic State Senator Roland Gutierrez of San Antonio, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.